And today we have a great guest. Jennifer Sey is here. Her new book, her recent book, is Levi's Unbuttoned. She was a brand president at Levi Strauss and was essentially let go. She'll tell us the details about this because she dared to raise her hand, much like Jay Bhattacharya and many of the people we interview here. Dared. How dare she raise her hand and say, I think we're doing something wrong here. And now, 3 years later, the New York Times has come out and essentially confirmed everything she was worried about. And any rational person should have been at least concerned about, if not in a panic about what we were doing to children. It was so obvious. And we'll talk about that. Jennifer has a great pedigree. She's an author, filmmaker, business executive. She was a gymnast, and she competed, I believe, with Stanford. She was on the U.S. Olympic team, had a severe injury, and that was the end of her gymnastic career. She was chief marketing officer and global brand president in January 22 when she stepped down. I'll tell you a little more about it after this break.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I think everyone knows the next medical crisis could be just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of another pandemic or something much more routine like a tick bite. You and your family need to be prepared. That's where the wellness company comes in. You know the wellness company. We have their physicians on, like Dr. McCullough, frequently. The wellness company and their doctors are medical professionals you can trust. And their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy.
It's a safety net. It's an insurance policy
absolutely.
That you hope you're not going to
100%.
need, but if you need it, you sure as heck are going to wish you had it if you need it.
Be ready for anything. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin, Z-Pak. The medical emergency kit provides a guidebook to aid in the safe use of all these life-saving medications. From anthrax to tick bites to COVID-19, the wellness company's medical emergency kit is exactly what you need to have on hand to be prepared. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever life throws at you next. Go to drdrew.com/TWC. That is DRDREW.com/TWC to get 10% off today. Just click on that link. And so let me give you some more details about Jennifer Sey. You can follow her on X at Jennifer Sey, S-E-Y, not S-A-Y, S-E-Y. Her Substack is jennifersey.substack.com. Her website is Say Everything, S-E-Y everything, one word.com. The book, as I mentioned, is Levi's Unbuttoned. But really what we want you guys to go look at is her new documentary, Generation COVID. You can find that at YouTube /Generation COVID Film. There's also a Generation COVID Film channel. This is about what we have done to young people and what she and I are going to get into a little bit today. Let me tell you again a little more about her. She was a 1986 USA Gymnastics National Champion, 7-time member of the U.S. Women's National Team. Her first memoir was about gymnastics. It was called Chalked Up. And she actually did a documentary, Emmy Award-winning documentary, Athlete A, which connected the crimes of Larry Nassar to some of the broader abuses of the Olympic movement. As I said, in addition to author, filmmaker, business executive, she began working at Levi Strauss in 1999. She got to the level of chief marketing officer and then global brand president. In January of 22, she was asked to resign because she dared to oppose. It's so funny. In her Wikipedia, it says, Sey says that she, as though they have to twist it. They have to put some nonsense in every word they choose. She was asked to step down because she was concerned about the excessive extended closure of the San Francisco public schools. Please welcome Jennifer Sey. Welcome, Jennifer.
Nice to see you, Dr. Drew. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. Isn't that? Did you know? Do you ever read your Wikipedia?
I check every once in a while. I actually checked, I think about 2 days ago, and it was a lot less sort of conspiracy laden than it was before. I
Mm,
used to be called a
mhm,
conspiracy theorist for thinking schools should open. So they took
uh-huh.
that out, whoever edits. So
Mm,
it's a little better. We're making progress a little bit.
mm-hmm. These, and let's as long as it's on my mind, let's address what happened at Levi Strauss. You did you say something publicly? Did you raise your hand just in at the community there level, the community level? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I was very outspoken from the get-go, March 2020, when I saw school closures coming, and they came fast and furious in California, where I used to live.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I
Mm-hmm.
was opposed to it from the beginning, which, as you are well aware, there weren't very many of us. But I was alarmed by it, and I didn't see an off ramp from the beginning. I knew, they said it was 2 weeks. I knew it wouldn't be 2 weeks. I knew that the most vulnerable children would be harmed the most. All the things that
Of
happened
course.
I
Of
saw
course.
coming. And I don't need to be a doctor. I'm grateful for doctors like Dr. Bhattacharya and you, and scientists like Martin Kulldorff, and doctors like Sunetra Gupta. But I'm sorry, I'm a mother of four. I don't need to be a doctor to know that isolating
Mm-hmm.
children at home alone on stupid Zoom school is going to be really harmful. And by the way, while you're doing that, you're telling them that they're selfish jerks for wanting to see their friends and for wanting everyday things and milestones like graduation. You're literally telling them they're horrible people. So when
Yeah.
when you signal to children that their needs come last societally, because let's be real, bars opened, strip clubs opened, 60,000 person stadiums opened, and kids couldn't play youth sports and couldn't go to English class. So we sent the very strong signal that their needs come last. We expect them to take a bullet for us. And you know what? They listened. And now we're seeing record high absentee levels. I mean, there are some cities that have chronic absenteeism levels between 60 and 90% of children. That's 60 and 90% of kids that are missing more than 10% of the school days. Well, you know what? We told them their schooling wasn't important, and they listened to us. That's what happened.
What
And
Caleb
I didn't
just
need to
threw
be
up.
a doctor.
Yeah, right.
So
And what Caleb threw up there, this is another physician posted this letter from the New York Times: pandemic learning loss, not an emergency. That was 1 year ago exactly.
yeah,
And now they publish a large editorial board article: the startling evidence on learning loss is in. Startling, staggering, all those words they love using. Yeah. Oh, well
not at
done.
all.
Startling. Now,
Not at all.
should have
Not at
been
all startling.
predictable. Predictable would have been the word that they should have used. Were they honest? It makes me
Yeah,
so
I mean,
angry.
it makes me so angry. People say to me, "Oh, don't you feel a sense of redemption?" And I didn't fully answer your first question, which is, did I speak up early? Yes, very early. I was vocal on social media. I wrote op-eds. I led
Mm,
open schools rallies in my town of San Francisco. Schools were closed in California the longest of any other state, 19 months. I was on television programs. I had the audacity to go on the Ingram angle, which is what really was the nail in my coffin amongst
uh,
my lefty circles in San Francisco and at my
mm,
place of work. But even during that time, I continued to do a really good job. I got promoted. You said I was the chief marketing officer for 8 years. I was a longtime employee, 23 years. So, well known, well
mm,
liked. And I got promoted during all of this, which I think is a testament to the fact that I was doing a good job. But it was, pretty
hmm.
relentless. Every day I was told, you need to stop. People don't like it. And I would say, no, thank you. I was very polite. I was very diplomatic. My own children go to public school, always have. And, I knew what was going to happen, and I was astonished by it. And by the fall of 2020, Dr. Drew, when the private schools opened, I mean, that just set me
Hmm.
on fire. I don't know how anyone could abide by that hypocrisy that the wealthy people screaming that we're all in this together are sending their children to $60,000 a year in-person private schools and yelling at everybody else to stay home. No,
Yeah.
no. So
Disgusting.
I wasn't quiet
Disgusting.
about it. It was disgusting and incredibly classist. It's structural classism. It's structural racism. The irony is I was the
Hmm.
one called a
Hmm.
racist. The
Yeah.
rationale there being, I don't care if Black children die because I'm advocating for open schools. So it was relentless for 2 years. And then eventually I was, ousted from the company. And rather
What?
than, take, what was that? What was that conversation?
Well, can you talk about it, or are you going to go after that, or did you go after them a little bit for wrongful discharge, or?
No, I walked away. I just walked away. I wanted to be able to walk away with my voice, because in addition to how alarming these policies were, what became increasingly alarming, and you touched on this with the opening clip with Dr. J, was the censorship. There was literal censorship. Had the government pressuring Twitter, for instance, or X, I should call it now, blacklisting Dr. Bhattacharya from the day that he joined Twitter. But the social censorship was really intense as well. And that prevented people from standing up. I mean, I have little patience now. There's so many people now that this New York Times piece has come out, and it's really definitively saying this is the most catastrophic thing that's ever happened to American public schooling. And people say, oh, finally. And I want to say, well, where were you? Because I stood up along with my husband alone and took the bullets. I'm seeing a lot of this lately. Well, we didn't know. What are you supposed to know? How did we know? How did we know? One of my proudest moments was I was on a Fox local channel here, the Fox 11, the Fox Think Simpsons and Family Guy Fox, not Fox News. Yeah.
And we did a nightly show to sort of try to bring people up to speed with things. And early into the program, the LA Unified announced they were going to close, and we brought in a board member, and I said, who told you to close? Where did you get that idea that school closure is the right thing to do? Did you talk to an infectious disease consultant? Did somebody come in and advise you? No, it's just the right thing to do. That is how pathetic the decision-making was at the time. And of course, the decision, as you pointed out, to bring kids back, that got even weirder. I remember later, now we're 6-8 months down the line, I talked to a LA Unified member, LA Unified Union, LA Unified School Teachers, LA Unified Teachers Union member. Was it a union or was it LA Unified board member? I can't remember, to tell you the truth. It was either LA Unified board, I think it was a teachers union member, it was a secretary from one of those groups. And I kept telling her, she goes, well, we need plastic up, we need plexiglass, and we need gloves, and we need this, we need that. I said, okay, I'll grant you that. If that's what you need to go back to school, let's do it right now. How long is it going to take? She goes, what? I said, no. How long? How long to get that material? Let's go. What do you need? 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Good. Let's get back to school. No. She accused me of being a sexist. I was sexist for saying that.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
So, I mean, LA was terrible. I know Barbara Ferrer, I think is your county public health person. I hear someone laughing. She's one of the worst. I really long for the day when I don't know who the local public health bureaucrats are across the nation. Sure. But I followed it very, very closely. But a similar thing happened in San Francisco. Once the vaccine was available in early 21, the teachers demanded to be first in line. They got first in line and then still refused to open in 2021 in the spring.
Right. That's right.
And they had the audacity to open school for one day in May of 2021 for high school students and declare victory that they had opened schools. I mean, are you kidding me? And then, I left San Francisco in, February 21 because I gave up. They were threatening not to open schools in the fall of 21. And I think it's important to remember that even after they opened in 21, kids were still under onerous restrictions. There's a young man in our film who is from New York, and he lived in Queens. Even after school opened, there were no sports. There were all sorts of prohibitions about who could play sports and how they could play sports. So, there was still 6 feet of distancing, which we now know came out of nowhere. It was just sort of it's some number pulled out of the air. And so the kids, for a year more, were dealing with really intense, onerous restrictions that impede their ability to learn. And of course, now we're seeing it's not just learning loss. There's all sorts of developmental setbacks for the youngest children who didn't kind of learn to be in the classroom. And, we spoke to teachers for the film, high school teachers. The violence in the schools is out of control because kids didn't learn how to kind of move from a junior high mindset, a middle school mindset to a high school mindset. They're disengaged. They're on their phones all day because we told them to be on their phones all day. They're depressed. They're anxious. They're suicidal. And like I said, we told them they didn't matter and school didn't matter. So guess what? They're also not going to school. They're not going. It's utterly unsurprising.
I was trying the academic and developmental outcome to me begged no conversation. It was so obvious. Like I didn't even focus on that. What I was focused on was the damage, the emotional damage that you do to a child. And I kept saying 8 to 15-year-olds because that seemed to me like the group that would be most affected by this. You say to them, their most important source of development is their peers. And you tell them you can't be with your peers, you can't have contact with the outside world, you're going to sit on a screen where your access to pornography and whatnot is heightened and people are sending around horrible things. And a friend of mine is a psychologist that studied all this, and the rate at which that was happening, it will blow your mind. But that data is available. It's available. And then we said, should you dare to do anything else, you're going to kill your family. You're going to kill your family. You tell that to an 8-year-old that if they do not shelter in place, that was the term used down here, shelter in place, which is the phrase used for an incoming nuclear missile. That's when you shelter in place. Otherwise, if you don't shelter in place, you're going to kill your family. You're 8 years old. Can you imagine the profound impact that would have?
Yeah, I had a 6-year-old.
You saw
I had
it, probably.
every age group, Drew. I had a college student, a high school student, a kindergartner, and a preschooler. Don't ask about the split in between, but I saw every age break. And even for the very youngest children, I will tell you, think about the speech delays because they can't see people's mouths. That's how they learn to talk. That's how they learn to read. Think about children with who are hearing impaired. Think about children with developmental disabilities. There's a child in our film who has Down syndrome. They were denied, legally required services. She didn't understand what was happening. I mean, the isolation for this child who was, I think, 8 years old at the very beginning was so intense, and she didn't know how to ask for help. And I agree with you. I wrote about this pretty early on. The guilt we inflicted on these kids for wanting any sense of normalcy. They were made to feel as if they were bad people for wanting very basic things at that age, to your point, when they are just supposed to be individuating from their parents. They're not supposed to be home with me all the time when they're 15, 16 years old. They're supposed to be with their friends, forging their own identities, and they were denied that opportunity. And here was the other thing that really pissed me off the whole time is every milestone that was missed, right? Whether it was a graduation or my son's preschool graduation outside that we could not have, everyone, it was like, whatever. It's just a graduation. It's just a dance. It's just a homecoming. You know what? We offered them no hope for when that would end. There's a family featured in our film called Generation COVID. They lost their son to suicide. When you offer no hope as to when it might end, and think about that. Think back when you were a kid. Those things were everything. Those milestones you look forward to, and school was it wasn't just an education; it was your community. A kind word from a teacher or a friend could pull you out of the dumps, and you look forward to the dance or the game or the debate or whatever thing you did, and you had none of that, and you had no hope for it ever ending.
And I you're absolutely correct. But I'm thinking right now about something else. I was saying it's going to drive Susan crazy. Maybe we'd put Susan on camera for this also, because turn your mic on. Because
oh no, what is it?
Well, because back when the developmental and cognitive delays that were going to come from school closures were becoming so obvious and unending. If you remember, the Ukrainian war broke out in the middle of this, and I would say every day, listen to the Ukrainian moms who are crossing the border into Poland, a language they do not speak. They're taking their kids. There are reporters waiting at the Polish border, the Poland border, talking to these Ukrainian women going, well, what do you think? How is it? What's going on? And they all said the same thing. This is terrible. We're leaving our sons and our husbands behind. This is awful. This is terrible. But we're gonna come over to Poland. And these kids, they've been out of school for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We got to get back in school in a school system where they don't even speak the language. 2 weeks seemed so outrageous that they were in a hurry to get to Poland to put their kids in school. 2 weeks.
Exactly. And it was 19 months. And the thing I hear from people all the time now is, what are you talking about? Why are you still on about this? What are you on about? It was a couple of weeks. I'm sorry. Where did you live? Because On March 13th, when all of the public schools in America shut down, that's 50 million American students, with very few exceptions, a few schools that went rogue and stayed open. They promised it would be 2 weeks, 3 weeks. A full year later, half of them, 25 million students, were still in disrupted schooling. And that went on for another 6 to 8 months. And you're right. There was school during the London Blitz. I mean, school is a priority. Everybody knows we prioritize children and their education. Children are the future. It's a cliche. It's a song. I know it, but it's true. And we put their needs last. It's criminal. It's a moral atrocity. I'm telling you, it really is.
Well, and
people will
say two things. Go ahead. Finish your thought. People will say, well, it's not all the kids. Some of the kids are fine. Yes, some of them are fine. But even if there is an increase of 5% or 10% that do not graduate and cannot read, and we know the reading numbers are horrible already. I mean, there's some cities in America where 0% of the kids in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade can read at grade level. But even if it's just an increase of 5%, that's a catastrophe. Not just for this generation, but for all of us. Because if those kids can't work and be productive in the world, I mean, what happens to this country? It's a literal catastrophe. It's a catastrophe. And look at the incidence of depression, anxiety. It's off the chart, and it was predictable. So the reason you and I are pissed is I would have been more than willing to look at that New York Times article and go, well, finally, everybody's agreeing this is good. But I'm looking at my Restream chat room here, and people are still like, it was only a few weeks. What's the big deal? It's like, so still people don't appreciate what happened. Number one, that's disgusting. Number two, if it had been really a miscalculation, I would be very forgiving. But it was a hysteria that damaged young people. It's immoral, and they destroyed lives of anyone who tried to stand up for the well-being of children. That is disgusting. You lost your career. Many people, you mentioned Jay Bhattacharya, Aaron Kheriaty was kicked out of his job. People lost their professional livelihood for daring to say things like, I'd like to follow my patients more closely and try early treatment. I don't know, maybe it would work. Number one. Number two, I'm not sure school closures are a good thing. Well, let's get the kids back to school. That's number two. Number three was, I don't think you have the data to mandate vaccines for kids to come back to school. I don't think it's there. Cancel.
And kids don't die from COVID.
Well, that is a whole other thing that finally...
But then the teachers do. So the teachers' unions were like, well, I could get sick and die.
Well, they don't either. I mean, the data was there from the beginning on that as well. As you well know, Dr. Drew, and Dr. Jay knows as well. From the very beginning, it was very clear that children are at thousands times less risk. And any age person, the elderly are at 3,000 to 4,000 times more risk. There are no elderly people in school, so in elementary school. So there was never any reason to keep the children out of school. There never was. And Europe learned this very quickly. Denmark reopened their schools 3 weeks in because, to your point, 2 to 3 weeks, and they saw the harms done, not just to the children, but to women in the workforce. There were all kinds of these sort of secondary knock-on effects from not having the ability to send your children to school. And they called us lazy wine moms and all of this, but it's like, it's a social compact that the public school system exists. Can I homeschool my kids? Am I capable? Probably, but you got to give me warning. And I was working a full-time job. So having 4 kids at home, that was pretty difficult, but the data was there. And here's what the schools in Denmark and Finland and all the Northern European countries, including the UK, what they did? They opened the doors. They open the windows sometimes, and they open the doors. There were no fancy filtration systems. There was nothing. They literally opened the doors a month in, and that was that.
Yeah. No, listen, that is the, so,
Should we tell Jennifer what's coming from China, though, now? Just to put
we'll talk about after the break. But I've noticed there's all this chatter in the press. How do you stay safe during Thanksgiving? How do you stay safe? You stay safe by effing doing what you've always done when your family gathered. Don't drink and drive. Don't drink too much and get in fights with your family. Maybe reduce your caloric intake on the holidays. You know what I mean? It's just, what do we do to stay safe during Thanksgiving? We need the government government to come in and do that. That is a level of insanity that I just can't even imagine that people have the temerity to put that in a newspaper or a report on television.
It's a communist plot.
Well, it's also, we've just validated like the height of neuroses. Like they used to be, the people that were like that scared to be around other people and, you know, did all the weird stuff and had hand signs, like those were people we felt sorry for. And we sort of, I'm not going to say make fun of them, but we knew, you know, we were gentle with them, but we didn't sort of validate their, you know, intense neurotic fears. And by all doing
forget validate, subject everybody in the world to the same thing. And look, we are human beings. We are biological beings. We get sick. That's a truth. Now, and pandemics come and they are terrible. Let's not downplay how awful pandemics are and that people die. That's not the point at all. Lots of people died, and and in the beginning, I do understand that there was some confusion. We were doing the best we could. I get it. But then it became absurd. And they, both the canceling of people who were trying to get the ship righted, and the time it took to get things, and the kinds of that's still going on. The weird sort of, if you suggest something that's true, you must be a member of one party or another. It's like, well, what is that all about? But that's very bizarre. Thankfully, I'm independent and have been for years, and so I just go, please give me a break. I saw somebody today going, well, it's a different issue. I got to take a break. Jennifer Sey is here. Tell them again, is the best place to see the movie? We're going to talk about it after the break. Jennifer, Generation COVID Film Channel at YouTube. Is that correct?
I think if you go to YouTube /@generation-COVID, then you'll find it. Sorry, that's complicated. Or you can go to my website, sayeverything.com.
Perfect. All right, we'll be back with more Jennifer Sey after this. If you're trying to figure out the right present for someone, you will not go wrong with gifting the most comfortable sheets, clothing, and accessories that your friends and family have ever felt. Of course, I'm talking about Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth has the softest and most comfortable sheets, blankets, towels, PJs, joggers, and more, guaranteed. Susan and I love them. In fact, we still have Cozy Earth sheets on our bed. I slept in them last night. I was thinking of how great they were. And look at this. I'm wearing one of their super comfortable t-shirts right now. I just can't get enough of Cozy Earth. Their sheets are durable, machine washable, and come with a 10-year warranty against defects. So no surprise that Cozy Earth's brand has been featured on Oprah's Favorite Things for 5 years in a row. Whether it's their luxury pajamas, super soft bedding, loungewear, or plush bath towels, you will love shopping and gift giving at Cozy Earth. Here's my gift to you this holiday season. Go to CozyEarth.com, enter code DREW to save 40%. That's CozyEarth.com with code DREW. CozyEarth.com, code DREW, save 40%. Susan and I have been looking for nutrition-packed, great-tasting greens drink for a while. And then we tried our friends at Paleo Valley's Organic Super Greens, which is superior to what's out there on the market. Our friends at Paleo Valley, well, they think of everything, and they've created what's been called a magical green powerhouse. All three delicious varieties, pure unflavored, strawberry lemonade, and tropical, contain 23 certified organic, antioxidant-rich superfoods, including the highest quality spirulina. It's also free of cereal grasses, gluten, grains, soy, and dairy, and no added sugars or artificial sweeteners. And what's more, it delivers digestive enzymes, polyphenols, which are believed to burn fat, and 8 essential amino acids. Imagine the time, effort, and cost of trying to make this yourself. It's impossible. Head on over to drdrew.com/paleovalley, and you will get 15% off your first order. All the great products they have there, 15% off at drdrew.com/paleo, PALEO. Thanksgiving is almost here, which means it's time for the best Genucel sale of the year. Just in time for the holidays, save over 60% off both of our personally tailored Genucel skincare packages at Genucel.com/Drew, so you can look your very best at all of your Thanksgiving gatherings. Look 10, 15, 20 years younger, guaranteed, with the best natural skincare anywhere. Take advantage of Genucel's best sale of the year and say goodbye to fine lines, crow's feet, puffiness, and dark spots. The Genucel experience is like no other, but don't take my word for it. You will look and feel your absolute best or your money back, no questions asked. So for results in 12 hours or less, Genucel's immediate effects is included for free. Plus, if you go to Genucel.com/Drew now, you'll get a free upgrade to priority shipping. That is Genucel.com/Drew, GENUCEL.com/Drew. Back with Jennifer Sey. Again, the movie is Generation COVID. Do check it out. And breaking news, Jennifer, let me read it to you. Outbreak of unknown pneumonia strain hits Chinese schools. 500 miles northeast of the Liaoning province. Influx of 6 children. Schools being on the brink of closure. I don't know where they got that data from. Children are showing typical symptoms: lung inflammation, high fever, no cough, no RSV. Highlighted in the ProMed sort of whatever that it's an infectious disease thing. Early notification played a crucial role in alerting doctors, scientists, and the World Health Organization to the emerging health crisis. So I guess we can be thankful of one thing. At least we don't have the WHO treaty in place so they can shut down the world again with fiat authority over all sovereign elected officials, which is what they're looking for. So I don't want to make light of a serious, illness. I didn't hear anything about hospitalizations. I didn't hear anything about consequences. An outbreak of a respiratory virus since when is that news? Now, okay, if I'm wrong, if it ends up being a more serious thing, I take back what I said, and we'll know soon enough. But leave that to the infectious disease community before you panic the world. Do you agree?
I do agree, but I'm nervous even about the infectious disease community because they were part of furthering the fear and panic on COVID. We viewed the world through one lens, through the lens of this single respiratory virus, which was mild in the vast majority of people. And we failed to look at human beings as human beings. I mean, I focused on school closures and the harms to children. And I did that for a reason. I did that because I knew what I was saying was controversial, but I thought that children would be the bridge, that I could sort of, convince people through our children. No one wants to harm children, or so I thought. I was opposed to lockdowns. I was opposed to all of it. But, there were so many other horrific things that happened. People died alone. Women gave birth alone. We couldn't have funerals. I had a very close friend who died in the summer of 2020, not from COVID. We were not permitted to have a funeral. This was a young woman. I mean, I'm still angry about it, that we weren't able to have a funeral. I mean, the list goes on and on, as you well know. And this is what happens when you just become so myopic and we let infectious disease, quote unquote, experts who are experts in one thing, but not human psychology and not sociology and not philosophy and not sort of the poetry of life and, the things that we need in our lives. We let that run the show. So I don't even want to listen to them right now, to be honest with you.
I understand that. And my sense was it really wasn't the infectious disease physicians. That's why I kept asking, what are they saying? They're not speaking up. They're not part of this chorus. It really was the politicians and these public health officials. And even, you should be aware of this, even when the public health officials were doctors, they were not infectious disease doctors. They were not internists. They were pediatricians. Because pediatricians historically dealt with the vaccine issues, and that was the public health focus. And so you have pediatricians making extremely difficult decisions about adult medicine for which they have zero training. And that to me was, I could see that having an effect throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, you had Ferrer, your public health person.
Well, she's not a doctor.
Los
She's
Angeles
not a physician.
isn't a doctor at all. I know, she's not even a physician. But these were the voices that were elevated, and the voices of doctors like Dr. Bhattacharya and Sunetra Gupta. They were, from these, they're renowned institutions. They're very accomplished people. Statisticians like John Ioannidis, who said it from the very beginning. That's when I kind of went down the rabbit hole when I started reading what he was writing about. They were suddenly shunted off to the side as sort of fringe. I'm sorry, Oxford, Stanford, Harvard. This is not fringe.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what happened to someone like me, the jeans marketing lady who thinks she understands epidemiology. Well, you know what? I'm numerate and I can read the data. And I understood that the data coming out of Italy from the Princess cruise ship, the average age of death was over 80. It was older than the average life expectancy.
Yeah.
So
that was
I
the part.
wasn't worried
That was
about
the
my
part.
children.
That was the thing I kept trying to emphasize, which was, look, we did a horrible job of protecting patients in the nursing home. We did it. The group that we were supposed to protect, we didn't even do that. We damaged everybody else, and we didn't protect the people we were supposed to protect. Right. However, I would remind people, I would always bring up the fact that the average life expectancy for a male admitted to an institutional setting, because they had progressed to the point they needed institutional support like a nursing home, average life expectancy is 6 months without COVID.
Right.
6 months.
Right.
And in the meantime, you have years of life lost of an 8-year-old who you've damaged and induced psychiatric pathology and damaged their developmental cognitive ability. I mean, it's just like these are immeasurably different phenomenon. And by the way, I kept saying also, are you talking to the old people, the grandparents? Are you talking to them?
Right.
Are you asking them?
Right.
Should we sacrifice their grandchildren for this? Should we do that? None of my patients would have said that. They would have asked for a much more reasonable approach.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. When you're an older person, what do you have? You look forward to seeing your family and you look forward to seeing your grandchildren. I mean, ask them about themselves, not even about the grandchildren. And I'm sure they'd want what's best, not all of them, but many of them would want what's best for their grandchildren. But I think for the elderly themselves, what are you locking them in the basement for? They don't have that long to live anyway. Let's just be realistic. Of course, if you said that, you were called a eugenicist.
No, they would tell me that. They would say, you're taking away 3 years of contact with my family. How many do I have? 1, 4 left? You're taking half of my time remaining with my family away from me. Ask me about that. Don't demand that I give that up.
Or
Terrible.
We made them so afraid that they've chosen to stay in their basement still. I mean, I definitely know some older folks like this, and that's really sad too, because what are you waiting for? And Drew, you're right. You go into the nursing home or you become elderly and you become compromised. A cold can be, incredibly dangerous. Like so you either choose to live those years of your life out and see your family and enjoy your grandchildren, or you lock yourself in your basement and live them out very alone. That just seems so terribly sad to me. And we just mixed up our priorities and we sort of prioritized lengthening their lives instead of enriching their lives. So it's sad for the old folks too. It's sad all around, but we went insane. And the reason I want to make the film is because, as you said, people are already trying to rewrite history and memory hole the whole thing. And I want people to hear from these kids themselves. It's not it's not meant to be in any way partisan. I do feel the left totally politicized this entire thing because you were accused. Look, I come from the left. I was not an independent my whole life. I was a left of center. I no longer am. And I was accused of being, an alt-right Trumper. I was accused of being a Nazi. I mean, I don't even know what that has to do with anything. And so I want people who supported lockdowns, who didn't, I don't want to just preach to the choir, right? I want people to re-examine their priors and hear from the kids and what happened, and hear from the parents who lost children, hear from the kids who were left home alone with 3 siblings and no adult supervision who dropped out of high school. Like, these are the real life stories. Listen to these kids, understand what you supported, and think about what you can do different next time, because this cannot happen again. It cannot happen again. And I fear, to your point, like this. It will happen again, because, even though there is some acknowledgement, hence the New York Times piece, this is catastrophic. There's still this sort of vibe that's like, well, COVID did it, not the lockdowns. It was inevitable. It was COVID that did it. And, us folks that supported it, whether it's Emily Oster and, the Atlantic asking for amnesty, or Scott Galloway on Bill Maher saying we need to give grace and forgiveness for the people who supported closures. No, What about my grace and forgiveness? What about your grace and forgiveness? We were right. But the general theme is, for those that were wrong and advocated for extreme measures. They did it for the right reasons, and so they want to be forgiven because their hearts are pure. I might have been right, but it was for the wrong reasons, and I'm still a very terrible person, and I get no grace.
Yeah, you were a dark, black-hearted individual. Yeah, you were trying to hurt people. That was the conceit at the time. Something's wrong with you. You don't care about people. You want them to die. You don't care. Murderer. Yeah. And that still goes on. That nonsense kind of bubbles up here and there. It's bizarre. And Frank, again, I'm disgusted by so many of these things. It really is a disgusting thing to see people do this. And ultimately, it is this mass formation, right? We were in a hysteria. Yes. And this hysteria keeps coming. And we're still in them. We're still locked into a certain amount of hysteria right now on a lot of topics. I mean, it's come up in the Israeli conflict. It's come up and so I spent a lot of time thinking about, what has happened to us that we're able to do this. And I ended up sort of giving up on the psychological sort of interpretation of this, although I do think the more narcissism, the more likely you are to see this kind of thing. But that this stuff happens in history. It happens a lot. Yeah. And you got to really study your history to prepare for these things and understand how they play out.
Yeah, I came to that myself as well. I thought, what is wrong with people at this point in time that is like they've gone completely mad? And then I look back at, across time and geographies, and it happens all the time. And most people, sadly, would rather kind of be silent, stand with the group. In this case, you got to not just be silent and stand with the group, but wrap yourself in virtue. If you advocated for staying home to stay safe and sheltering in place and all this nonsense. And very few people, less than 10%, are willing to sort of stand up when they see a thing and know that it's ridiculous and take the slings and arrows that comes with that. Very few are. I think it's less than 10%. And that is just true. That is humanity across eras, across geographies. That's just the way it is. The Milgram experiment bore the same thing out. We see it time and time again. And somehow when I realized that, I felt a little better. I don't know why, because I just realized, I guess that's human nature.
Yeah, I don't know that I felt better, but I know what you mean, because understanding things has a certain amount of relief associated with it. But my anxiety about what to do about it remains. Do you know who Mark Chankisi is? You watch his stuff on Twitter? Yeah. Okay. So he really believes this is just happening all the time, and he's a very bright guy, and he's a physicist, and he's a psychologist at the same time. And I do recommend, he's a good follow on X. Do check it out. But he well, where was I going with this? Well, I have found myself obsessing about obsessing about early 20th century Russia, later 20th century China, 1790 France. I mean, I'm just reading about all this stuff. I can't get enough of it. And the in addition to my sense of how these things happen, and this being a little bit different, I hope, but that, the thing that is mathematically certain, and again, I know you study political science and I think history at Stanford, that if you pull out the guillotines, there's a mathematical certainty you will end on the guillotine. And so this cancel culture that flies around, people have to understand eventually it turns on you too.
Well, I think we're seeing that now. And I think, a lot of folks on the far left are experiencing a taste of it with the Middle East conflict. I think we can call it a war at this point. Hopefully there's a ceasefire coming. But you see folks on the far left chanting from the river to the sea, and sometimes more violent phrases than that. Gas the Jews, we've even seen. And they're getting canceled, they're getting job offers rescinded, and now they're shrieking about free speech. It's interesting. Now they found their free speech backbone after demanding the firing and the doxing of people for the last however many years. So yeah, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I don't support it. I mean, I think it's really different. I don't want to get into the Middle East conflict. That's a whole other thing. You know what? March, say your stupid stuff. I don't agree with it. I'm glad I know who you are and what you think. Now, if you provoke violence and if you are barricading Jewish students in the library at Cooper Union College. That's different. That's a physical threat. That is not speech. That is not protected. But speech, I find it vile. I think you have every right to do it. And that's what I've said from the beginning.
I agree.
I don't know why people couldn't defend my right to say a thing. And that was one of the most upsetting things, is friends I had for 30 years. I mean, I lost all my friends. Mark Changizi is a friend now. You know, those of us who spoke out early and often, we found each other fast because we lost our friends, we lost our communities, and in some cases we lost our jobs. And I say all the time, I might not agree with you, but I'll defend your right to say that to the death. And no one, colleagues I'd had for 20 plus years, did not defend my right to say a thing outside of work.
Right. And so I was seeing a little thread or article, I guess this morning, where they were analyzing or looking at Elon Musk's tweets over the last 5 years. Now, look, he's become so far right. And I thought, no. He hasn't changed a bit. He's just gotten louder and more strident on this particular issue, which is freedom. Did you ever imagine that you'd be a freedom fighter at this stage of your life, and that would be something that you would be having to champion in this country? Did you imagine that?
Goodness, no. I mean, I had somewhat of a history of standing up for kids, and I, experienced a mini cancellation with my first book, which came out in 2008 in a much smaller community. I wrote about the abuse in the sport of gymnastics, physical, emotional, sexual abuse back in 2008, before anybody was really talking about it. Well, I learned real fast you're not supposed to talk about it. This was in the days before Me Too. You just didn't. I was dragged. I lost my gymnastics friends. It was crazy. I was called a grifter and a liar. It was the early days of social media, so I didn't really get what was coming.
And it bothered. I'm sure it hurt then too. You actually landed back then. You're less used to it. Yeah.
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 Right. It was really, it blew my hair back. It prepared me well, I will say, for this, little bit of COVID dissension. But 10 years later, I was redeemed when Larry Nassar, the doctor for Team USA, who sexually assaulted over 500 athletes, he went to prison for life in 2018. And I was redeemed for about, 37 seconds until I started opening my mouth about COVID. But it came from the same place. Kids are voiceless. They will try to please the adults around them. And, I was compelled to write that first book called Chalked Up because I knew that kids were still being abused in the sport. And as a 40-year-old, I was still suffering from the abuse that happened during my time as a gymnast. I mean, it was an insane world back then, and I knew it hadn't changed very much since the 80s. So I felt it was important that other children not go through what I went through. And that is why I spoke up during COVID, because I knew that children were suffering, and I wish an adult had stood up for me when I was a child.
Well, speaking to that point about the children suffering, I hope that those 8 to 15-year-olds that I was so concerned about that were harmed, I hope they grow up to be adults that are pissed. They should be furious at their government, at all levels of government. And it might induce some change. Are they angry? Are they getting that reflective capacity yet, or are they just going on with their lives?
I think there's a young man in the film, and the film is not done yet. At YouTube, if you go check it out at generation.covid, it's a teaser for the film. It's about a 5.5 minute teaser, and you'll get a sense of the impacts to these children. But there is a young man in the film. He's in the trailer. His name is Bam, or he goes by Bam. His name is Garrett Morgan Jr. And he says our generation will not forgive, and we will not forget. He lost so many opportunities.
Oh my God.
He comes from a lower income
let's
family.
elevate that voice. Let's elevate that kid. Put him on that kid should be the poster child. I mean, Jay Bhattacharya is my poster child for the excesses of COVID. Let's let that kid be the poster child for the response to the excesses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jay opens the trailer and Bam closes it. So that's our book.
Oh, that's
there.
interesting.
And he's been very outspoken. He comes from a not very well-off family in Queens. He gained 100 pounds from being locked at home, depressed. He played football. He was counting on a football scholarship to go to college. His family can't afford college. He didn't get that. The public school kids were locked out of sports when the private school kids were playing. It goes on and on. So, Bam is a kid, and he's amazing. He is angry. He is not going He's going to go into the world and he's going to make a difference. But what worries me is that I think a lot of kids took the message of you don't matter to heart. And they are not going to go into the world angry and raring to go. They're going to go into the world with low self-esteem and an inability, to feel that they can actually make a difference in the world because we told them they didn't matter, that their needs didn't matter. And so I think there's going to be a lot of children like that. And then you just have the kids who don't have the basic skills. We have these two young women. They were both 15, maybe 14, 15 in Greeley, Colorado, large immigrant community here. No role models in their family that had gone to college, even high school. They didn't have any high school graduates in their family. And they both just stopped going to school. They just stopped. They were caring for younger siblings. School wasn't sort of a priority. They were left home alone. I mean, their families, their mothers and their step-parents are all lovely, but the one mom worked a night shift. The teenage girl was left at home with 3 children to take care of. What is this kid supposed to do? So I don't know what's going to happen to those kids.
Oh my God, I'm so upset. I hope this thing in China doesn't trigger another. Go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to say there are some amazing people that are trying to make a difference. There's this organization in Colorado called Zero Dropouts. They go door to door to get the kids to go back to school. Can we not have a national program that takes the Zero Dropouts model and just goes door to door and gets these kids to go back to school? The kids that have made it through have had inevitably some third-party mentor, a coach, or someone from Zero Dropouts or a guidance counselor.
Yes.
There have been amazing people that have helped get some children back on track. And I would just like to see some sort of national program.
Oh, hell yes. Or at least statewide, for God's sakes, but that states can pick up. But to your point, that actually bears out in the psychiatric literature too, which is that a single positive, sustained relationship outside the home dramatically changes the outcome for kids by adulthood. Yeah. So chalked up. There's chalked up. And let's put the other book up too. Let's put up a more recent one, which was the Levi Strauss story. I'm so pissed at them, by the way. I'm wearing my non-Levi jeans today. Who is their biggest competitor? I'm going to go buy some jeans from them. Is it
depends what your price point is.
Lucky Brand?
Wrangler is actually the next biggest. Wrangler is still the next biggest.
Buy your Wranglers. Because I really do think that that the pocketbook right now is about the only way you can really get people's attention. And I've noticed that kind of thing has started to happen a little bit. And I now feel like a moral duty to do that kind of thing, to make some points. I don't know. I'm curious. Yeah, people, I'm looking at the restream here. There's a lot of I agrees coming by there. So
wanted to point out too, Drew,
yes,
that book, Chalked Up, that was published in 2008, but USA Gymnastics didn't take action against Larry Nassar until 2015. So there were quite a lot of bad stuff going on for many, many years, and people did not listen.
I would like to add a point to that. The first reports of Nassar's criminal behavior came in 1997 and 1998 and were brushed under the rug. So he went on for decades. Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
The rot.
It's funny. I've gotten to know, this is now a joke. I'm going to tell you, this is to make light of some of this stuff, not to undermine what you're saying. But I've gotten to know Nastya Lukin very well. Oh, and she was joking at lunch one time. We went to the Jordanian desert together and did this Special Forces show for Fox. And as we were sort of hanging out beforehand, she goes, I was asking about this stuff, and she goes, "Yeah, I always wonder what's wrong with me that he didn't abuse me. The guy did not abuse me. I don't understand. Is there something wrong with me?" And she said there were a couple of them. They were joking, but they started asking those kinds of questions of one another. But as always, it always works that way with perpetrators, right? They pick the ones that, even if it's just instinctive, that they know they can get away with stuff. All right, well, Jennifer, listen, I'm running out of steam because this gets so frustrating for me. It's just so pleaded. Susan, do you have anything you want to ask Jennifer? Hold on one quick second. We'll put Susan?
No, I think she's been very thorough, and she's a great mom, and she's thinking about her kids first. And if I had kids, her kids' age during this, I would have pulled my hair out.
Yeah, you would have been one of the.
I mean, my kids were 27, 28, but they also were completely changed.
Look at the camera. Look better if you look at the camera.
Oh, hi. So, yeah, but I worry about the kids that were in middle school and high school and early college, because it changed their lives. And I've seen my kids change, but they're adults, but they're still changed.
Yeah, they've had to, it rocked everybody. It rocked us all.
And I feel so bad. And now they're talking about this new virus in China, and it's affecting children. So, it's just another panic horn moment. So
well, the problem is, if it really is something, how do we know? Who are we going to trust for the information?
Right.
I don't know who even to look to anymore. I mean, I guess Jay Bhattacharya. Let's go to Jay. Let's go to the guys that were actually right during COVID.
Well, it's right before the holidays too, so they're trying to stir things up for us. It's just ridiculous.
I feel like they tried with monkeypox, which I'm not supposed to call monkeypox. I know, but that didn't really work.
Yeah.
Oh, why didn't it work?
They tried like
no one
crazy.
listened.
Well, because we're learning. We're learning. And that was, I mean, that was so obviously a certain thing. And it was just like, any awake person could judge that to be the case. But Susan, didn't I say what is this now? What are you putting up there?
This is their timeline of the public health emergencies of international concern, how many they've slowly added up, including monkeypox.
Yes, they've suddenly ramped up the number of infectious outbreaks that are of international concern, and yet none of them have been of international concern. But Susan, didn't I say when the moms get worked up, that's when things are going to change?
Oh yeah, the moms are going to change the world. That's the only way it's going to happen.
And so, Jennifer, I suggest you put on your torch and you get your pitchfork and lead them on, please.
You know what? I've had my torch and my pitchfork. What else can they do to me now? Nothing else can be done. I've been outspoken from the beginning. I do have a cohort of mom, and there have been some other amazing dads as well. And we can't let them off the hook. Look, Gavin Newsom is trying to rewrite history. Our governor, or your governor, not mine anymore, is trying to pretend he had nothing to do with it. That's a blatant lie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lie.
It's disgusting. Disgusting.
It's really, really gross, and we can't let them get away with it, because they will do it again in a heartbeat, and we cannot afford to have that happen.
That's the problem. That is the problem. We need to learn from this. And I'm not one of these people that thinks people should be punished, but I do think they should be uncomfortable and they should be forced to apologize. But I don't want to see what happened to you and your place of employ happen to a bunch of other people because they were in a panic. Some people might want to see some real consequence, and I'm sure there will be some real consequences along the way.
If your job is public health, which should be about total health, right? Not just the prevention of one infectious disease. If your job is about population level health, then I think you probably did your job pretty poorly in this case. So I actually, it's not punishment. I mean, some people are sort of calling for heads, kind of. But I don't really think you deserve to have your job. You're not very good at it. You really didn't care for the public's health. In my case, I led the world's biggest, most famous, and most beloved jeans brand. My advocating for young children to get to go to school had nothing to do with my ability to perform that job. And by the way, I was right. And by the way, I worked for the brand that, the campaign that I led was Use Your Voice. So apparently it was Use Your Voice, but not that voice.
Right. Yes. That's what happened to Aaron Cariotti. I don't know if you know Aaron. He's a bioethicist who said, now I've got to walk the walk. I got to raise my hand and go, you don't have the quality. You don't have the ability to make these mandates scientifically. It's just not there. Fired. So here we are trying to put everything back together again and make sure this doesn't happen again. Caleb, I hear your voice in there. What's going on?
No, I just wanted to say, Jennifer, I think a lot of very good, very moral people would have just taken the $1 million and shut up And I think you've done an amazing job just sticking with it, putting your message out there. That was the harder path to go. My parents raised me well. I probably would have taken the $1 million and shut up. I probably would have. But I'm
not sure your wife. I'm not sure your wife would have if her kids were well-being was on the line. No, I'm not kidding. It's a mom thing.
No,
it's a mom
true.
thing.
It's true. There are some things that are worth way more than that. So I applaud you for that decision, and I hope that you have many rewards in your future for making the right choice there.
Thank you. I mean, people say to me all the time, why was that the hill you were willing to die on? And I say every single time, why weren't you? If you aren't willing to stand up for kids and our basic freedoms like speech, then I don't think you have a hill. And, have a good time looking yourself in the mirror and living with that.
And I think one of your subtitles of one of your books was how I lost my job but found my voice, something like that. Right?
Yeah, that was for Levi's Unbuttoned. I mean, I had my voice before, but I really, kind of am now sort of known as, I obviously
I found my loud voice, my outdoor voice.
I found a very loud voice, and that's more of a platform, so any attempt to silence me didn't really work. And I just really hope, the book was,
Go ahead. You really hope. Finish.
Oh, I was just going to say, the book is an exhortation to speak up. I know it's scary. I know there are risks. But if we do it together, we're not alone, and they can't cancel us all. They can't.
Yes.
So stand with me.
They can try.
They can try, but it won't work.
I'm here. I'm with you. Last question is, as someone that studied history, do you have a sense of what this all is and how this happens? Have you learned something about it now that we've lived through or are living through these waves of mass formations?
Oh, goodness. If I knew that. I do think for whatever reason, and I don't know if woke is a word you don't like or do like, but I'm going to use it as a shorthand. I think, no COVID, lockdown forever became part of the kind of woke ethos and sort of platform. And I think wokeness is this very dangerous thing that divides us into two categories, oppressors and oppressed. And the oppressed have a right to any behavior, and the oppressors are always evil no matter what they do. And I was billed as an oppressor in all of this. And I do think that dynamic, and wokeness is the name for it right now, is a slow and steady move towards socialism, communism, and that, history would bear that out as well. And so I think it's important that we do away with all of that.
Or serious conflict, which is the other place it goes. So yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a great place to finish. I thank you for being here.
Don't be afraid to say that either.
And,
a lot of people are afraid to say that. They can't, they kind of, communism is right, left of woke. Definitely.
But people don't appreciate, there are something like 30% of Gen Zers, or their millennials, have a favorable sort of a notion that maybe communism is the direction we should go, kind of thing. And we're not teaching history. That's what that means. We are not teaching history.
That's the thing that scares me the most, after decades of safe spaces. And I think a very significant percentage of Gen Zs, and I have two of them, actually don't believe in free speech. They don't.
Yeah.
They think you and I shouldn't get to say what we think if it hurts their feeling.
Yeah.
Oof. That's
and after you send them through college, they come back Marxists. So prepare yourself.
What I don't get, and then I'll end here, is like, there was some of that when I was in college too, and we're probably close to the same age. I'm a Gen X, and it was like a thing you did in college, and then you didn't do that anymore. But that's not what's happening. They come out and they bring that to the workplace, which, by the way, they're not actually communists. They're working in corporate America and calling for the heads of, the oppressors. So it's all sort of bullshit anyway. And they don't really know what they're talking about. And they're screaming about river to the sea, and they don't know what river. And they're sort of, looking at this current conflict as a brown or black and brown versus white conflict, which is not what it is. And but you're right, we're not teaching history, and they don't understand the perils of this orthodoxy.
Just study your history, everybody. Study your history. Please, dear God, study history.
So funny, because our kids were just out of college and we had to live with 3 Marxists. It was great. But they figured it out. Oh, it was great.
They figured it out. Reality has a way of coming in. All right. Well, that's really funny. All right, Jennifer, thank you so much. And it's Say Anything, S-E-Y, or Say Everything? Say Anything, right?
Everything.
Say Everything. Say Everything. There it is up there on our screen. And there is the book and then the documentary trailer. And I hope you'll not be a stranger.
Thanks for having me. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, you got it. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much. And that, Susan, you wanted a chance to say that. So let's get Susan on camera. She wanted to wish everyone, everyone that works with us, all of our guests, all of our Caleb and
Thank
Emily.
you. I'm thankful for our team here at Ask Dr. Drew. I'm thankful for my lovely husband who is always keeping me on my toes, and I'm very thankful that my family is healthy and happy, and we're all going to be together for Thanksgiving this year and not worry about wearing a mask. We're so lucky to have a great audience, and hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving.
And our sponsors have been great. They really have.
Oh yeah, thanks to our sponsors and,
what's nice about
their
shop,
families.
Susan, I don't know about this shop, but I'm over your shoulder there and on the computer screen, and so they can see me at the same time. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah,
but
that's cute.
That's interesting.
I didn't even set the camera up how it should be.
Caleb's moving me in closer. If you roll back towards the computer screen, then I'll be more prominent. It doesn't matter.
I think Caleb's behind me too.
Oh yeah, look, Caleb's on the screen there. No, that's you. That's you a second time.
We just set up this new studio. I'm very thankful for that, and we're going to be having in-studio guests coming up so that everybody can see the rest of the room. And yeah, everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Yes, we really wish everyone a lovely Thanksgiving. Enjoy yourself. Live, everybody. I want people to live and enjoy. And enjoy is the word. And that's something that's a shared experience with people you care about. And just lean into that. This is what they were paying no attention to for the last several years, and still not concerned about when they tell you have to be careful when you gather with your family at Thanksgiving. Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah, we need to be together. We need human connection.
Oh boy, do we.
Everybody's looking forward to it. It's just so nice because, we don't see everybody together except for at Thanksgiving and Christmas. So
and next week we were back on Monday. Is Mark Garagos my guest on Monday? He's coming into the studio? Okay. So Monday,
we're going to have some new cameras set up. I hope we can get this all going, but I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, that's 3 o'clock guest, and 28th noon with Kelly Victory and Seamus Bruner. December 4th, Tom Rentz comes by. Nicole and Jemmy on December 5th. Ed Dowd back with Kelly on December 6th. So we'll see you. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll see you on Monday with Mark Garagos. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help. All right, breast milk still flowing. 25-year-old female had a daughter 6 years ago, breastfed for around a year. Haven't had any pregnancy or miscarriages. I'm not on birth control. I'm healthy, 150 pounds. 3 years have gone by, and if I squeeze my breast, I still express white breast milk. It will shoot out pretty far. My husband does not squeeze or suck on them extensively, so I don't think that he's stimulating production. She's looked into all this. This is good. It's not really something that concerns me per se. I'm more curious why it hasn't stopped after 3 years. I figured the milk would eventually dry up. Your milk is dried up. It's just you're still producing a small amount. But I mean, that's just the way. It's not like she has a full production of milk. It's your taint is burning. The taint is burning.